Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Cabinet. Welcome to everyone in the chamber. We also have members joining online. This meeting is being live streamed and we've started recording. I'm going to keep my opening remarks brief and just advise you all it's a really jam-packed agenda, and some of us have meetings after this meeting, so we are going to have to move swiftly through. But I do want to just take a moment to thank staff, members, the wider public so much for all the support they've given to the Hurricane Melissa appeal. I went over to Floorfield, to the depot, to see some of the items that have been donated, and we couldn't get everything into the crate that we had arranged, so another delivery was organised on the spot, and it's just incredible to see that support come forward. So I would like to record in the minutes my sort of sincere thanks for that. I've got apologies from Deputy Mayor Bramble, Councillor Walker, Councillor Etty. I believe Councillor Sizer has joined us online. Is Councillor Moema online? If not, apologies for Councillor Moema. She may be joining later. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest they wish to declare? No? Item 3, unrestricted business. We'll consider the admission of any items. I don't think there is any. No. Item 4, notice of intention to conduct business in private. No representations have been received. However, we do have exempt appendices 4 and 6 in the capital update, an exempt appendix also in the King's Hall Leisure Centre refurbishment project, and an exempt report and appendix for Council Housing Acquisition Programme funding, which we will consider at the end of the meeting once we've excluded press and public. So we will need to move everybody out quite swiftly so we can get to that item. Moving to item 5, deputation and questions. So next we'll hear the deputation, and we also have questions from councillors present, which will be taken under the relevant agenda items. Questions that have been unanswered will receive a written response. So I'd now like to invite Councillor Garbett to introduce the deputation leader. Is it Sophie Jobson? To speak for 5 minutes. We'll then ask some questions for 5 minutes and then deliver a response from the Cabinet member, Councillor Sarah Young, who has also been allocated 5 minutes. So this agenda item will be a tight 15 minutes. Councillor Garbett.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to introduce this deputation from the residents on Graham Road, which is to the east of Dalston Ward and runs to Mare Street. Really important road. It's got loads of people living on it, and they're really concerned about the increases in traffic that are coming down the road, but also the difficulties of where people can cross, people doing dangerous U-turns and ending up in people's front gardens. And they just describe themselves as collateral damage because it's a road that sits between a number of different projects that have happened across the borough to improve safety, and it's something that the residents really agree with, but they just feel like they've been forgotten and a bit lost, like left out in the middle. So they're here today to put their case forward for some more attention on Graham Road, which is something that, you know, Sophie's going to speak to the fact that she's representing about 20 households, so it's something that comes up on the doorstep time and time again, and it's a really important issue for Graham Road residents who feel left out, and as I described, they describe themselves as collateral damage. So over to Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to this today. As Zoe said, I'm representing about 20 households. I would say I'm getting more and more emails as people talk to their neighbours. So this is a real concern for lots of people living in the area of Graham Road, and also now Navarino Road and Greenwood Road, which are being massively affected by the Amherst Road changes. I guess I've been raising safety concerns with Zoe about Graham Road for the past couple of years. And as a result of that, I've spoken to Street Scene, had a very helpful meeting with Councillor Young and some of the Street Scene team a couple of weeks ago. And their update was that they appreciate a lot of our concerns, but the council has a lot of priorities. And I think what our main message as a group of residents is to say is that we will be trying to keep the pressure on, as our basic takeaway is that this area, the Graham Road area, is bearing an awful lot of the pain of the changes that Hackney is making, but is consistently not prioritised for funding or improvements or things to mitigate the sort of impacts that we are experiencing. And just to give you some sort of ideas about what impacts we're talking about. So I'll start with Greenwood and Navarino and move on to Graham Road. There's been a huge increase in traffic. We haven't had the monitoring. I think the street scene team did say they would send me some links or something, but they haven't as yet done that. So I can't tell you exactly, but from living in the area, I think all of us would say there are now queues down Greenwood Road quite a lot. There's huge queues on Graham Road turning into Navarino Road, which never used to be the case. As someone who crosses Navarino Road frequently, it's now quite dangerous and difficult to cross. There's no crossings. The traffic calming measures aren't really working. You've got very large goods vehicles on what is a very small residential street. It's a one-way street, which does have, and I think both roads have cycle lanes on them. I personally would not feel safe cycling on either road at the moment. And I think one of the things that a lot of people have raised is now there are a lot of cyclists going on the pavement because there's so much traffic coming down. It's actually quite unsafe because the cycle lane goes in the opposite direction to the traffic, or it goes in both directions, but they're just very difficult to use. And I know that obviously increasing cycling and active travel is something that Hackney is very keen on, but it's making it really difficult in this area. As I said, there are no safe crossing points. The traffic calming measures are not effective. I know the street scene team said there's lots of data being collected to sort of measure the impact as the Amherst Road project continues. And I think we'd, as a residents group, be really interested in seeing that so that we can understand if what we're seeing anecdotally is what's happening. One of the other things that is a big problem is on Greenwood Road. There's a no right turn to stop people sort of using it as a rat run, but what that has meant is people come out and do a U-turn rather than, and that obviously is really dangerous because you've just got people U-turning at what is a very busy road now. And I guess that's the big thing about Graham Road. I've lived on Graham Road for 15 years now. Most of the residents that I'm representing have lived there for 10 plus years. So we are people that know this road, really, you know, like living there, and the traffic is just getting worse and worse. There has been an improvement in the morning, as I think being Councillor Young mentioned when I met with her, but that is primarily due to the fact that the left turn at the end of Graham Road is blocked off for the moment while the works are continuing. It's going to, I think everyone acknowledges it will get worse once that ends, and then you'll have tailbacks going in both directions. Obviously, it's a road that will have more buses on when the works end, so the amount of sort of pollution, noise, general difficulties in using that road will get worse as the scheme changes. I know there's a hope that less people will go down it, but for example, I was the large goods vehicles is one of the big problems for me going down Navarino Road. I saw one going down and I was thinking, oh, that's exactly the sort of vehicle that hopefully will be displaced. But then I saw it was going to Travis Perkins. It doesn't have, it had to be in the local area. So that it just feels that it doesn't seem right that a small pedestrian road ends up with these massive vehicles going down it because there's nowhere else for them to go. I think from the council's own reports, it's always been acknowledged the quality of life on Graham Road is going down, and there are certainly when I've communicated with the street scene, they will say mitigations are planned, mitigations for these areas will follow, but we know that nothing has happened, funding hasn't been applied for, and what has been applied for is funding for the Dalston Liverpool neighbourhood, where there seems to be, and again this is from my own eyes, much less traffic and much fewer accidents. I'd say the number of accidents we're seeing on Graham Road, all of the residents have mentioned that they're seeing more and more accidents happening, particularly at those turnings with Greenwood and Navarino. Does that mean my time's nearly up?
Yeah, that is your time.
Okay.
But don't worry, we can ask questions that allow you to say anything you haven't managed to get to. We've got time for questions and comments now, so hold that thought. And by way of assurance, you know, we all live in the borough, so we make our way around. I have to get off my bike at the moment to walk up Navarino, so we're very conscious that in this moment of change that there is an impact. So I just want to reassure you we're not ignoring it. Any questions from Cabinet? Councillor Kennedy.
Sophie, thank you. Yes, I cycled down Navarino the other day. That is hairy at the moment. You sort of got cut short by the red light, and I hope you were coming on to the mitigations you'd like to see in the area. And sorry, I'm the Cabinet Member for Health, so I'm particularly thinking about mitigations that would help build on the work we've already done across the borough to improve air quality in particular. So what changes are you thinking ideally you'd like to see?
I think, so I can tell you what I would like to see. The difficulty, I think, is that I'm representing a group of residents that have sort of disparate views on how they think it should be improved. So I don't want to say that everyone would agree with this. You know, for me, in an ideal world, you know, you wouldn't have vehicles going down Navarino and Greenwood Road. You know, they're small residential streets. It fits with all the other LTNs. I don't understand why they, but at least heavy goods vehicles not going down, improved crossings on Greenwood, on Graham Road itself, because they're really dangerous in terms of when people are turning right and into Navarino Road. It's now become this sort of very congested area, and it's where everyone crosses, but it's not a safe crossing point. So some sort of thinking about how you could cross Graham Road more safely. What else? Something to, I think it feels like Graham Road no longer feels like a residential road. And I think that's something that we keep coming back to, is that it is a residential road. We appreciate it's an A road, but something to remind people that people are living here, children are crossing to go to school. You know, no one obeys the red lights at those traffic crossings. They're very dangerous to use at the moment. So in terms of, I don't have a grand strategy, I guess. I think that there needs to just be some thought given as to how the whole situation can be improved. Does that answer your question a bit?
Any other questions or comments? Can I invite you to give your response?
I was going to ask you a question first, which was just to say, was there anything else you wanted to add before I responded? Because I know you were cut short.
No, I think the main thing is that we just want to highlight it's becoming increasingly difficult to live in that area, and we think that the council should prioritise making it better, really.
Thank you. So, I mean, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for bringing the deputation and for representing your neighbours as well, and also for highlighting these issues, which I think we're all really aware. We all live in the borough, we all move around. You know, I was on Navarino and Graham Road today, and we all understand that you know, it's been hard for you on Graham Road, and that is particularly so at the moment whilst we're in the absolute midst of a huge town centre transformation, which is really affecting you. As you say, there are pros and cons of how that's affecting you at the moment. And also thank you for coming to meet with me and with street scene officers last week and with some of your neighbours. And it was really helpful to hear the range of kind of concerns and ideas, and really that detail from people of what their experiences are. So really grateful for that. And I know the street scene officers found that very helpful in terms of their thinking and planning. So let's keep up that conversation. I wanted to reassure you that we are absolutely committed to improving the environment for all who live here, not just those who live on Graham Road, Navarino Road, Greenwood Road, but for the whole borough, everybody who lives in Hackney, and particularly for those who are walking, wheeling, cycling, taking public transport, you know, trying to get on the bus, trying to get the bus to keep moving. And that is almost 90% of the journeys people are taking in Hackney. So Graham Road is busy, no question, it's busy. It's an A road, it's also a residential road. And I think one of the important things for us to remember is that a main road is still often a residential road. Many of us do live on main roads. And it's absolutely central to some of the nearby schemes, as you've said. So it's not that the team or that I am not aware that there's an impact on Graham Road when we introduce other schemes on those side roads. We absolutely are aware of that, and we are, which is why we're sort of monitoring and measuring, you know, the amount of traffic, the increases, and also the speeds. You mentioned that there was some data due to you. There is a draft reply that comes out of the meeting that we had last week that I asked to wait until after this evening. So there are links in that to the data that you asked for about showing the traffic moving along there. So those low traffic schemes, as you know, are aimed at reducing traffic overall in the borough. And that is something that, you know, we're committed to, that I know Councillor Garbett is committed to, and also her colleagues, you know, as well as this Labour Council. We are all committed to reducing traffic overall in Hackney, and particularly to through traffic. So traffic not coming to Hackney, not starting in Hackney, not ending in Hackney, but traffic is just using us as a cut through. And that's the overarching aim of our policies. And I think sometimes we, you know, we model and we predict, but we still have to see what actually happens in practice when we introduce these schemes. So our aim is to make it more pleasant for people who are walking and wheeling and cycling, but also if you have to drive, you shouldn't be sat in traffic, and nobody benefits from people sitting in traffic. And I'm aware that that, you know, also means that then when people do get moving, then they start speeding. So, you know, on both sides, it's problematic. As part of this, we're introducing really ambitious projects around Hackney Central, which also affect Graham Road, and some of those impacts will be positive. So, you know, we're really transforming our town centre, and that includes things like, you know, transforming the library, transforming the Hackney Museum, transforming the access to the stations, which will improve Hackney Down Station, as you know, Hackney Central Station's already had some improvements, and making those accessible to people as well. Those things will also increase the number of people able to access those places, you know, on foot and on public transport, and to choose public transport rather than driving to the area. And I think they will make a difference. But that doesn't in itself solve, you know, completely the problems that you're highlighting. So
1 minute warning.
okay. I just wanted a quick word on air quality, just to say air quality across the borough has improved dramatically in the last few years. That is partly due to, thanks to the Mayor of London's ULEZ scheme, that's partly thanks to the improvement in engines, in vehicles, but it's also partly to our own policies. And we have some air quality monitors. I think we talked about the ones on Greenwood and Navarino that we moved because the air quality had improved to those national levels there. So one of the things we will do is move those back so that we can keep a check on the impact on Greenwood and Navarino of those changing patterns. I know my time's running out. I want to just say one last thing, which is I'm not going to commit tonight to specific proposals, but it was very reassuring when we met, and very reassuring seeing your deputation note that the things that you're asking for, the issues you're raising, and the things that you're asking for chime extremely closely with what Street Scene are already looking at. So the way our funding works, as I mentioned before, is that we apply to TfL, it's in 3-year rounds, and we are already in the process of seeking funding for improvements along Graham Road. So that work's already started. It's great to have your input into that, and I think we should be continuing this conversation. So thanks for coming.
Thanks again for coming in and for sharing your experience and views. Thank you. You're welcome to stay, but you certainly don't have to. Moving on to item 6, unrestricted minutes of the previous meeting of Cabinet. Do Cabinet have any comments they wish to make on the unrestricted minutes? No? Can we approve the minutes? Agreed. Thank you. Item 7, unrestricted minutes of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee. The minutes for the meeting held on 6th of October. Sorry, we've got a really packed agenda. We've got a really packed agenda and I need to move on. Sorry, it's not appropriate. Sorry, you're going to have to leave the chamber.
Social media ads and the pointless transformation project. We are looking for in the last year alone, Hackney Council
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you now, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep, okay, brilliant.
Is live streaming on? Yeah, fantastic. Apologies everyone for the change of scene. A bit cooler in here, so it's great. So moving to the our long and restricted minutes of correct criminal incident committee entered at cabinet in December. So moving on to item 8, the overall financial position. As at 30th of September 2025, the borough is forecasting an overspend of 10.2 cents on 5 million, which marks an increase of 224,000 since the August position. While we've made significant budget growth and remain committed to investing in frontline priority services across housing, poverty reduction, and climate action, and equality, this level of overspend does require really careful monitoring and mitigation. If you've managed to settle in, Councillor Chapman, I'd like you to introduce the report briefly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. In my introductory remarks, I will also try and deal with Councillor Garber's question, where you haven't answered it yet. Forgive me. So here we have the financial position halfway through the year, and it's disappointing that we are forecasting a 10.375 billion pound overspend, which is a slight increase from last year. But I'll still offer my thanks to all my cabinet colleagues in CLT for all the work on mitigation, and you'll see there's a big list of all the activities that are taking place to mitigate this under section 210 in the reports. In our 22 manifesto, we committed to maintain our sound financial management to keep a balanced budget that supports excellent services and provide great value for money for residents. And there, in spite of the huge financial challenges we faced, budget pressures in social care and homelessness and 14 years of austerity under the previous Tory government, I'd say we've achieved this. So are we facing the need to ask for exceptional financial support, or in the likelihood of an imminent section on full report? Obviously, those matters are, especially the later, is the decision of the Section 151 officer, not myself. But the report is clear on the financial challenges we face, and without intervention, continuing to spend on our current trajectory will put us at risk of needing to be EFS, like 8 councils in London have already done in 2 years. However, this will be avoided if we continue with the laser focus we have on mitigations set out in the reports, and when budget measures already agreed are fully implemented. If we could do those 2 things, we'd be well on the way to financial stability. I say in the introduction of the report, we are always fighting for Hackney's Corner. Mayor, we are doing this, and thanks largely to your work in lobbying and talking to government with other London local authority organisations. There's been a significant movement in our favour, thanks to that intervention in discussion. We've had confirmation in the statement that last Thursday after this report was published that we'll get a £600 million recovery grant nationally been reinstated, as well as acceptance of the new deprivation statistics and the need to address disadvantage in the formula. So that's really good news, and it shows the benefit there of a Labour Council working hand in hand with the Labour government to make sure that resources are allocated fairly to the places that they're needed. Now, that's not to say, of course, that the background still won't remain challenging, principally because the demand for services for the most vulnerable people in the community, both social care and homelessness, remains. But yeah, we're in a sound position. We've got measures in place that will bring our budget back into balance if they're all implemented and follow through fully. We have support of the Labour government, and I think it would be overly depressing to think about the project. I don't think there's a prospect of an imminent Section 114 or the need for financial support if we stick to the measures that we've agreed to do. Right, so I commend the report to council.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Yeah, there have been numerous meetings, but also support from bodies like Central London Forward, as well as London Council doing extraordinary work to lobby to ensure that the particular circumstances in London in terms of taking housing into account, which I think that way, as well as bringing in the recovery grant again, it is very satisfying to have seen that movement. Any questions or comments from Cabinet?
No, Chair.
I've got questions in addition to Councillor Garbutt from Councillor Root.
Not regarding this, I don't think particularly. I have submitted some questions which I suggested could be answered as written answers.
I think you've got a general question that we'll just take now, if that's all right.
Okay, if you want to take it now, that's fine. So my question is to you, Mayor Woodley, which is, how is it reasonable to expect opposition councillors or indeed members of the Cabinet or the public to read over 1,200 pages of dense, fact-packed information of the Cabinet when they're given just a few days' notice before questions must be submitted? These are important decisions being made which require proper consideration, and it seems that Hackney Council cannot be properly held to account if this system continues. I know that there are no questions from the public. I'm not surprised. It's not because the public aren't interested, it's because they haven't the time to read the papers and make those questions.
Thank you. I would answer that this is part of a wider decision-making process. It's the final stage of a lengthy and robust process. Our substantive reports undergo extensive review, including full member drop-in sessions, where officers and portfolio holders view councillors and take any questions. Our scrutiny commission is likewise on opposition councillors to space to examine proposals in depth, gather evidence and make recommendations. The Cabinet meeting is therefore the last step, where councillors and the public can directly challenge the executive before decisions are made. I think you can make good use of this space in terms of being declarations and focused questions, but it is ultimately a Cabinet meeting made in public rather than a scrutiny meeting or even a full council meeting. This is the end of a long series of discussions when we get to this point of final decision making. Nonetheless, I think it is important that in our papers, and I think we can work on this together as an executive across Cabinet and CRT, to ensure that the cover papers and the recommendations are clear and succinct, and that the additional information that you have is for openness and transparency, so there isn't that concern about the delving in the detail, that is simply to show where our research and evidence is coming from. So I'll assure you that we'll continue to keep our process open, robust and accessible, and open all your comments. Councillor Garbutt, I should have given you an opportunity to ask a supplementary if there was no.
I'd like to ask a supplementary to that, please, if I may, which is really to say that whilst there are various procedures which take place before things are presented at Cabinet, it is not infrequent to see things presented in a coherent, cogent fashion, which are going to be approved as policy for the first time in Cabinet documents. It's not unusual for that to happen. That is a significant democratic deficit that Hackney is carrying. It's a result of the directly elected mayoral system and of the way that it works with Cabinet. Isn't it time now to rethink that directly elected mayoral system in Hackney? Thank you.
That's not a supplementary.
It's not really. It's time to
And we have a
Discuss.
I think there are advantages to the elected mayoral system that we have here in Hackney, because it allows us to work in partnership and to replicate through the process that our elected role brings. As I said, this is an executive moment. We're directly elected into our roles to make those executive decisions. What we bring forward is full transparency. And in order to be held to account, and there are other opportunities for engagement, through consultation, through scrutiny, to get into the weeds. So I think I will accept the point that we need to keep those cover papers I described succinct, the recommendations to be absolutely clear, but I think we would still want to be open and transparent in sharing our evidence and research. There will always be a backup in papers around this time of year, so you're always going to see that. Increase, but we'll do our best to tighten it up. Councillor Garbutt, could you have supplementary?
Yeah, so going back to the budget position, I guess what's hidden in what you were saying is that the mitigations often mean cuts to like really vital services for residents. And I guess you said that there'll be support from the Labour government, but I'm going to wait and see what happens on Wednesday, the outcome of the fair funding, which I know even the mayor stated might risk a 12% loss. But my question is, what would the outcome be if we had to go for financial assistance in the next term? First check.
Obviously, looking at mitigation, we will look to avoid direct cuts in resident-facing services. Well, I think we've got a pretty successful track record in doing that. I mean, I can't really speculate on what might come out of the statement next week, but we do know that we've had the reinstatement of the recovery grant, which is like £600 million nationally, and we expect something like 10 million over 3 years in Hackney. They're already the mitigated figures that are reported in the report. So, one, I'm hopeful is all I can say about that. And the last part of your question, I missed. Yeah, I think that's best.
It was, yeah, what happens if we have to go for financial assistance? What's the outcome?
We are very keen to avoid that. And obviously the result of that is you end up effectively doesn't really help in the longer term, because it means that we borrow more, we borrow money, we'll end up borrowing money or using capital to support the revenue budget, and that actually delays rather than puts the problem away. So it's something I think we're absolutely right to try and avoid, and the path we're on at the moment will do that with a reasonable settlement and the actions that we've already agreed to take.
Councillor Turvitt.
Thank you, Mayor. The report refers to paying premium agency rates to secure what is described as the best staff, without defining what best actually means. At senior level, this raises serious concerns about overpaying individuals simply to sort of convince them to work in Hackney, using public funds in a way that is neither sustainable nor fair to residents who do not earn anywhere near the salaries. Can Cabinet reassure us that we are not deepening financial pressure by relying on inflated agency rates for senior roles, and will be committed to reviewing this approach so that our recruitment prioritizes people who are genuinely committed to serving Hackney, including developing local talent, rather than relying on costly premiums that reward pay expectations rather than passion for residents and public service. Thank you.
So you'll remember that we have created a public partnership venture called Connect to Hackney, which has improved oversight of agency worker spend. It better manages agency worker numbers and ensures consistent agency worker rates. Since July of this year, this change has supported a significant reduction in the number of agency spend forecast, with work being undertaken to reduce spend further. Whilst we have transferred existing agency supplies to Connect to Hackney, all agencies have registered to supply temporary workers where required to agree to a standard rate. Premium rate workers are those with highly specialised skills, where the demand creates competition and it's not always possible to attract or secure temporary workers at standard rate. However, Connect to Hackney now that it registers and engages temporary workers, encouraging our local residents to register so that we can prioritise offering opportunities for work, developing skills to them wherever possible. In certain circumstances, such as when there are projects that are for a defined period, our service restructures pending, it would not be appropriate to best value for residents to recruit to roles on a permanent basis. You'll also be aware that we do have an emerging people and OD strategy that looks at how we will be developing and upskilling our staff, and that will be an opportunity, of course, for staff to take on roles. We are doing a piece of work to ensure that everything is achievable and that there are residents, and then taking further review of agency work and contracts, and considering alternative options for specialist premium rate roles and take action to improve permanent positions for fixed term contract when it's appropriate to do so.
Can I just ask
Do you need clarification?
it's just for my supplementary, which is very brief.
Thank you.
That's really good to hear about the training for the staff that are like moving onwards and also available with residents. And I just asked because you said that the council doesn't always attract the high level of skills. What do you think that is?
We live in London and there are 32, 33 boroughs, and so there's incredible competition across the capital, especially for highly specialised skills. It's always been the case in London and will continue to be the case. And there are also certain skills that we can't appoint to permanently. So there will always be a selection of jobs where we have to turn to agency spend. I think we've talked in the past particularly about seasonal opportunities as well. So seasonally agency spend will fluctuate, and we are expecting that to happen, particularly around the winter season. Some of the sorts of skills that we can't recruit to might be asbestos removal, for example, or and so there are always skills that local government won't be able to recruit to. There are around 800 specialist hubs across councils or local authorities, so it's a highly complex area of work and expertise.
Thank you very much. Can we move the recommendations to set out?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 9, capital update and property disposals and acquisitions. This report seeks approval for investment including capital to enable the provision of various sites and assets, including our schools, our neighbourhood school sites. These proposals form a critical part of our strategy to make the most of the council's portfolio, generate capital receipts and support reinvestment into frontline priorities. Councillor Chapman, can you briefly introduce the report?
Thank you, Mayor. I've much to add. As I said earlier, one of the advantages of the benefits of being in a situation where we strive to achieve a stable financial situation, that is we can pursue an active capital programme to bring update to the infrastructure of the borough and bring improved facilities to residents. I won't dwell on the detail of the report, just to pick out 2 items, which is the digital transformation programme, £9 million, which will improve the council's digital infrastructure, and very much based on improving the frontline interface with so that the residents' experience with our IT and our website is better. And there's a number of measures in there around EV charge points and doctor cycles, which will support our climate action plan. Apart from that, as set out.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from Cabinet, and would Cabinet want to go into exempt this to discuss exempt payments for assets?
No, Chair.
No.
Can we read the recommendations to set out?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 10, eliminating violence against women and girls strategy. This strategy is a clear statement of our values as an administration, determined to tackle violence against women and girls, and to prioritise safety, equality and the rights of our residents. Councillor Jones, would you like to introduce the report?
Thanks very much, Mayor Woodley. This is eliminating violence against women and girls strategy for 2025-29. The current one is due to expire by end of December this year. So this is why this has come forward. And this strategy affirms Hackney Council's commitment to addressing all 4 types of violence against women and girls in our borough, including domestic abuse, sexual violence, harmful practices, and online abuse through our partnership driven and public health approach. This strategy recognizes that achieving this goal demands more than enforcement alone. It requires prevention, education, support, and the collective strength of our communities. We have listened to residents, victims, survivors, practitioners, and local organizations who work tirelessly to protect and empower women in Hackney. Their voices and experiences are at the heart of this strategy. We have spent over 9 months in terms of developing this strategy, and through strong partnership with the police, health services, schools, voluntary and community groups, and local residents, we coordinate action to challenge harmful behavior, support those affected, and hold perpetrators to account. For the purpose, because of time constraint, I will just mention that the 4 priorities are in this strategy, which kind of mirror both the national and London strategies, though not yet published, but mirrors what those strategies are planning to do. The 4 areas in Hackney strategies about raising awareness and developing professional practice is preventing violence against women and girls and tackling misogyny, as well as supporting victims and survivors of violence against women and girls. And the 4th part is holding perpetrators to account and reducing harm. While Hackney is generally a safe place for women and girls, we recognize there is always more work to be done to prevent harm. And the strategy is this strategy comes with an action plan that will help us do that between now and that extend to 2021. Thank you. I commend the report to Cabinet for approval.
Thank you. I really appreciate that level of engagement and lived experience that's come to this. It's really any comments or questions? New recommendations.
Agreed. Thank you.
Item 11, emergency planning and response review. We're taking a proactive step to strengthen our borough's resilience. This review identifies the escalating risks facing Hackney and demonstrates our commitment to protect every resident and ensuring the council can respond swiftly and effectively in a crisis. Councillor Poynter will be going to introduce the report.
Thanks very much, Mayor. This report comes before Cabinet, and the background to this was that the Council Emergency Planning and Framework was last formally reviewed back in 2018 following the Grenfell tragedy. Since that time, Hackney has experienced a series of major incidents, including, we know, the COVID-19 pandemic, the cyber attack, several floods, and significant fires. So in 2025, early this year, Sean Root, a leading consultant in this area, was commissioned against a backdrop of significant challenges to look at our emergency planning and response. And in particular, learning from Grenfell Phase 2 report and how, as well as addressing current and future threats in Hackney. In terms of the report come back to say that our overall, the review found the emergency planning and response function in Hackney to be in good health. But there were 14 recommendations, and out of the 14 recommendations made, I need to highlight just 2 of them, which are specifically pertaining to elected members in the recommendation 9 and 10, and it's about introducing the recommendation asks us to introduce a structured reporting process for elected members in terms of our resilience and being able to scrutinize the emergency preparedness of the borough. And the other one is making it something very important as part of elected members' induction to have training around the council emergency planning and response, so that they are familiar with the processes, as well as making sure that every councillor is equipped with the civil resilience handbook produced by London local authorities. So that is basically what this is. I'm happy to commend the report to Cabinet for approval, and in particular, making these areas that are recommended for
elected members taking that forward to become part of induction in the borough.
Thank you. It's important to support that pilot now, but again, personally to ensure that everybody's received it and councillors is advised. Any other comments or questions? No, move the recommendations.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 12, Sport England Grant Award for Public-Based Partnership. This report cements our leadership in driving quality through sport. Sport England is renewing its partnership with Hackney to tackle physical activity and equality, meaning we're channeling national investment into our communities, reinforcing our commitment to health, cohesion and opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. Lovely to bring this report. I'm asking Cabinet to say yes to a 1.7 million grant from Sport England, an additional 300,000 to help with our multi-use games areas. They have confidence in us because our brilliant Kings Park Moving Together programme, led by Lola Akindoyan, for whom extraordinary thanks. She does a fantastic job. We did that so well, Lola did that so well with the rest of the council, that they now want to look at improving systems right across the borough, not just in one ward, with this money. Please can we say yes to it?
I think the movie workshop group will be very happy as well, so yes, it needs around. Any questions, comments? No? Can we approve the recommendations?
Great.
Item 13, update to planning enforcement policy. So this is about having some neighbourhoods, refreshing our policy to ensure that our development will be met with fair actions, that we're going to get our casework, while also defending local character and interest of our residents within our repression. Councillor Nixon.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mayor Woodley. And just by way of a very, very brief introduction, it is just to kind of recognise the importance of planning enforcement and effective and efficient planning enforcement. Hackney is now blessed with one of the most effective and professional planning enforcement teams in the country, and it is performing consistently to a very high standard of service and service delivery. And we shouldn't lose sight that the primary purpose of planning enforcement is to ensure the well-being and safety of residents in buildings, basically. And often, unfortunately, there are buildings that go up in the borough which are not safe and do not support the well-being of those who use those buildings. And it is for that being the primary reason as to why an effective planning enforcement team is on the ground. Legislation has changed over the last 10 years or so since the initial policy was adopted, and this update reflects those changes in national legislation, and it also builds on experience, because often a planning enforcement breach on paper is done not deliberately, and it is not done on purpose. It is done by accident. An action has been taken forward by a resident. And so the policy tries to recognise those circumstances and makes a clear distinction between those who are up to no good and those who make a genuine mistake. And it's absolutely what public enforcement policy should be kind of recognising and able to do. And if I may just finish off, also about 10 years ago, there were about 1,500 unresolved planning enforcement cases in the London Borough of Hackney. This team has now consistently managed the normal list of planning enforcement cases. They have dealt with the backlog, and they are now running a very, very, as I said at the beginning, protective service. The policy is as set up. Thank you.
Brilliant, and thanks very much to officers who have worked so hard to clear that backlog, and actually have turned up on occasion, even in my member casework surgery, to try and explain some of the constraints and the opportunities of planning enforcement. Really appreciate it. Any comments, questions? No, if we can move to recommendations and set out.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 14, landlord licensing consultation outcome and implementation decision. After extensive engagement with residents, tenants, landlords and agents, we're responding to the lived experience in our borough, which has confirmed the urgency of reforming the private rental sector. And this is a decision that shows that we are absolutely prepared to act. By choosing to implement a borough-wide licensing framework, we'll be shifting power, protecting tenants, holding irresponsible landlords to account and ensuring quality homes are the standard. Councillor Llewellyn.
Thank you, Mayor Woodley, and I'm really pleased, colleagues, that I'm able to bring this paper tonight. This paper seeks your approval for the introduction of a new selective licensing scheme across 17 wards in the borough, and a borough-wide additional houses and multiple occupation licensing scheme. And there is an extensive list of appendices, so hopefully we've shown our working, and all the teams and the staff involved have gone over and above what's required, but all of the designation of the borough-wide scheme is found at Appendix 7 in the pack. So the purpose of the scheme, I know it was a really key commitment of yours, Mayor Woodley, and the Labour administrations, but the purpose of this scheme is to protect tenants from serious hazards and unacceptable standards, as well as recognising the fact that we have good landlords and encouraging those good landlords to create a level playing field, reduce the burden of enforcement and reactive intervention, which I know has been raised in the past by members across all parties. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank landlords and tenants alike for their engagement in the consultation exercises that took place between June and September. And they're detailed as well in the appendix, along with the feedback and the outcomes from those. So it's just worth noting that following this consultation and if we get approval tonight, this will be the first time ever that the borough-wide licensing across Hackney for its private sector tenants will be really a game changer for lots of people, and I'm really pleased to welcome that security. So those 17 wards that I have mentioned, they're detailed in the report, but that takes in about 76% of the borough, and the wards not in scope of that are Hoxton East, Hoxton West, Hampstead and Woodbury Down. There's further detail about how licensing regulation will work in those boroughs, but to reassure everybody who's watching at home, across the whole borough, 34,000 people will have protections from this Labour-run administration, and officers will be empowered to take action on behalf of private renters. So just by way of background, just perhaps a few points that our population has grown. We've heard from the OFP this evening that we have increasing challenges on our budgets and a growing population with increasing demands on our services. So in Hackney, over 40% of homes, households, twice the national average, are rented from private landlords, and we're also dealing with issues such as disrepair and the wider issues that came out of COVID and so on. We also know that the private rented sector is a highly unregulated sector, so alongside this, I'm really pleased that the Labour government has brought in the Renters' Rights Act, and that will commence in May next year. So taken alongside the right to challenge for tenants, the additional powers that officers will have, the additional capacity that the council will have, will be able to work really positively with those landlords who are an important part of our ecosystem, but make sure that tenants are placed in well-maintained, responsibly managed homes. And I just want to finally put on record my sincere thanks to the consultation and the private rented sector teams who have really worked diligently and taken on a really huge task to put in place really clear measures that will affect the lives of thousands of people in this borough. So I commend the report to Karen.
Thank you so much. I know it's important. This is a really robust report. As we're really patient to get to this place. It's really good that we've got that confidence supporting the report as we move forward. And the fact that we're going to see the renters' rights coming in next May. I remember Councillor Momer joining you in bringing a deputation to full council in 2019, something like that, looking to end unfair evictions, and finally we're going to be in place. So it's great to put all this together. Any comments or questions from Cabinet?
No, Chair.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Item 15, future shortage area action plan. This is about our vision for inclusive, sustainable growth in Shoreditch. We'll work to 2040. It's about creating more genuinely affordable homes, better workspaces, public spaces, and opportunities to learn from people while protecting what makes Shoreditch unique. Growth and happening has to benefit everyone. We know about this later, but not just investors. We're setting rules now to deliver good designs, safeguard heritage, drive economic opportunity, tackle climate risks, but long-term community interest firms that will cover a little bit of the process. So I'll hand over to you,
Thanks, Mayor Woodley. Look, in the interest, and the fact that this plan, this paper indeed, will be going to full council on Wednesday evening, there may be an opportunity to say a few more words and add a little bit more colour to the item on Wednesday evening. And on that basis, if I may suggest, Mayor Woodley, that the report is as set out for Cabinet this evening, and the Cabinet recommendations are identified separately from those of the council recommendations.
Very good.
Any questions or comments on the recommendations as set out for Cabinet? No? Okay, we can approve those then, please.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 16, Hackney Economic Development Plan and our Centre Economy Strategy. This is a really bold commitment to ensure that local people have real access to good job development of new skills, but this aligns with the London Growth Plan and our own ambitions, including our climate ambitions. We want to create sustainable economic growth, protect our communities today, and for a truly resilient future. I'll hand over to Councillor.
Absolutely, Woodley, yes, and you know, a number of colleagues obviously have had some sort of input into these, but I am going to hand over to the Deputy Member for the Economic Council.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Nicholson. I just firstly want to thank all the officers and members who've been involved in the development of this plan. It's a real team effort across numerous departments. It shows what one council approach can really look like. I would like to thank also all the residents and businesses who've taken part in the engagement process. It's really helped to shape this plan and make it a real ambitious document. Hackney has the highest economic growth rate in London. The Economic Development Plan and the Circular Economy Strategy, a sub-strategy of the Economic Development Plan, aims to ensure that economic growth in Hackney is felt in every corner of our borough, from Shoreditch to Kings Park, Hackney Wick to Woodbury Down. In Hackney, there are still some of the most deprived communities in London. At the core of the plan is the aim not to be just shaped by growth, but to shape growth. We believe, as Joe Biden said, and I quote, "Trickle-down economics has never worked. It is time to grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out." Our plan is powered by grassroots growth. We will give power back to workers, small businesses, and promote alternative forms of ownership. We will show how economic justice and climate justice are one and the same by turbocharging our green and circular economy. This borough was built on Labour values, and we will never shy away from those values by giving power back to workers, small businesses, and our local communities. I just want to highlight quickly some of the ways we will look to achieve this. There's 64 pages, there's a lot of detail in there, there's 4 missions, there's a lot to dive into, but firstly, we're looking to drive up wages through our procurement policies and the Responsible Business Charter by pushing up wages for Hackney residents across the private public sector. Secondly, giving residents skills and training to thrive by breaking down skills barriers experienced by some that restrict them from accessing the economic opportunities in Hackney, and supporting them to have the skills they need to respond to an ever-changing workplace. Supporting the green economy, circular economy business to grow through bespoke business support, our circular economy zone alongside a creative enterprise zone, and council-initiated green skill courses. Finally, the council will increase the procurement of goods and services from local business. The council already procures 25% of its contracts from local businesses. The Economic Development Plan, alongside the Council's Sustainable Procurement Strategy, aims to increase Hackney Council's procurement spend with local businesses. For the first time, we've ensured that the Council includes cooperative-led business in its hierarchy of procurement and will use its procurement powers to ensure local businesses can match the Council's adopted standards for employment rights, environmental standards and recycling. There are many other measures in the plan, and I just want to thank all the Cabinet colleagues who helped to shape this and commend the paper to the Cabinet.
Thank you very much. Also particularly Councillor Williams and Councillor Young, who I know attended the launch of the consultation, but many of you your service across this work. So any questions or comments from Cabinet? No, I've got a question from Councillor Barber.
Yeah, set out the name for it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Gardner, for your question. The Economic Development Plan is focused on delivering grassroots growth that is felt in every corner of the borough amongst all our communities. As I outlined in my opening remarks, this plan will improve business and workload conditions for communities across the borough by driving outreaches, giving residents the skills and training to thrive, promoting community wealth building and supporting small businesses to grow. The development of the plan has taken into account economic data, the Hackney Equality Plan and the anti-racist framework in its development, as well as the findings of the Equalities Impact Assessment, which has been prepared to accompany the plan. As part of the engagement process for the plan, we held a focus group which focused on small businesses from Black and global majority backgrounds who engaged through our business support programme, Hackney Impact, to give their views on the policy, which have fed directly into the plan you see. The Equalities Impact Assessment shows primarily positive impacts on equality groups and those with protected equality characteristics as a result of the proposals in the plan. Mission 1 of the plan has a specific focus on employment skills and learning for Hackney residents, particularly those unrepresented in the labour market. Mission 1 also provides detailed information about the support we will offer for residents and how we will ensure that there is targeted at those groups, communities and areas in the borough that need it most. Our Learning Inclusive Futures through Technology programme, LIFT, is a live example of a programme aimed at increasing diversity in the technology, creative, digital and scientific sectors through training, mentoring, work experience and employment opportunities. I know Councillor Williams is such a champion of all this work. Another example of how equality is embedded into the Council's approach to economic development is Hackney Impact, our free business support programme aimed at small businesses in Hackney, which has supported 339 businesses between 2023 to 2025. 36% of these small businesses coming from Black and global majority backgrounds. Thank you for your question.
Did you need clarification on your answer? Okay.
No, if my question has been noted in the minutes and I didn't read it, if we can note the questions, just so they're written.
Absolutely, yeah, no.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can we have the recommendations as set?
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you, everybody. Item 17, Public Spaces Protection Order. This PSPO is about underlining our commitment to keeping Hackney small spaces safe, welcoming the public land and strengthening community trust. Over to you, Councillor Thomas.
Thanks very much, Mayor Woodley. Colleagues will remember at June Cabinet meeting, I brought a report here for Cabinet to approve the community safety team to undertake a consultation exercise in relation to the renewal of the existing public spaces protection order in where Hackney Week, Woodland and the surroundings area for a further 3 years. This is because a standard PSPO can only last for a maximum of 3 years and need to be reviewed. So this is the report of that review, that consultation, which includes a recommendation to renew the PSPO for a further three years. The PSPO will continue to place controls on antisocial behavior caused by groups of people, gathering, bringing generators, lighting, sound systems, and decoration in the Woodland area and Hackney Markets and surrounding area, often consuming alcohol and other substances and partying till the early hours and disrupting other residents, and as well as causing significant damage into the woodland, including trees and other stuff. Background, can I just stress that the PSPO are intended to ensure that public spaces can be enjoyed by all, free from antisocial behavior, or is not targeting. It's about using that tool, having that tool to tackle nuisance that are imposed in a specific area by some people, and will not be targeting any groups, in particular the vulnerable groups in our community. So the recommendation is to for Cabinet to approve the public spaces or protection order for the woodland and surrounding areas for further 3 years. Thank you. I commend the report to Cabinet for approval.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Okay, we need a brief recommendation.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 19, update on the City Hackney Sexual and Reproductive Health Strategy. So this is about strengthening access to sexual and reproductive health for all, particularly vulnerable communities, showing our commitment to prevention and to better lifelong health outcomes in our partnership with City and Hackney Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you. You've summed it up perfectly, Chair. It came here a year ago and Cabinet asked to have a follow-up after a year. I hope from the report as laid out, you'll see that good work is going on underneath the 5 themes. I chair a subcommittee with, or I co-chair it with my equivalent in the city, and I'm proposing that for future years we take updates to the Health and Wellbeing Board rather than here. I don't think it needs to come to Cabinet. And the only other thing I'll do is thank the very hard work of officers, Deputy Director of Public Health Chris Lovett, and Frooks Kaminga, Public Health Consultant, for their work over the year. Thank you.
So would you like to mute, or did you want to?
Oh, sorry, I just said I've been promoted because Councillor Kennedy called me consultant, but I'm a public health specialist, but thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that you've done. There was a concern that there was increasing risk in terms of sexual health in Hackney. We were concerned about young people, so it was important to get that update. So thank you very much for that. Is Cabinet happy with the proposal to go to Health and Wellbeing for the future updates?
Agreed.
And we know the update as received.
No.
Thank you very much. In that case, we'll move on to item 19. That's local authority member appointment to the new Regent's College. In Deputy Mayor Bradley's absence, I'll just comment that by appointing Pauline Adams as the local authority governor at New Regent's College. Our intention is to strengthen oversight, support, content and provision, ensuring everyone gets the benefits from strong leadership and strategic guidance. Any questions or comments from the Cabinet? No, can you approve the recommendation?
Yep, agreed.
Item 20, implementation of standard fee and fees and charges for markets, streets, trading and shop fronts. I understand the publication of this report will be delayed due to further diligence checks required, so apologies for that being published late. But we are updating licenses and pitch fees to reflect real delivery costs, especially around waste, electricity and admin. And this is about making things sustainable, not subsidising it from general taxpayer funds. Can I ask Councillor Thomas to contribute to the report?
Thanks very much, Mayor Woodley. As the Cabinet member for markets in Hackney, I'm very proud of our award-winning market service and the contribution that Hackney market and street trading are making to our local economy, supporting hundreds of small and micro businesses, celebrating our diverse communities, as well as contributing to the vibrancy of our high street. The proposals in this report ensure these services remain financially sustainable and legally compliant while responding to the feedback we've heard from traders over the past year. We have spent over a year in developing this proposal. Following two extensive consultations, the final recommendations reflect a balanced approach, fair to trader, transparent about cost, as well as focus on reinvestment in the market services. The proposed revised standard fees and charges for Hackney's market, short-front and screen trading services from 1st of January 2026. And the reason for that is within the law we operate, the Local Authority Act 1990, we can only propose changes to fees either 1st of January or 1st of April. So this is why we are proposing the recommendation changes to start from 1st of January 2026. This proposal will ensure compliance with Section 32 of the London Local Authorities Act 1990, which require all costs of operating markets to be recovered from license fees. Without this revision, the service will operate at a deficit of about £500 million in 2025-26. We are talking about earlier, Councillor Chapman was presenting the financial situation of the council. So what happened is if we're not able to do this, we have to go to the General Fund for Subsidy, which is unlawful under the Act. We have, like I said, we spent over a year in developing this with first statutory consultation last year between November and December 2024. After that consultation, that we paused the consultation because of feedback we received from, in particular from residents, ensuring that all concerns were reviewed, evidence, and where possible acted upon. We also set up a working group comprising of traders and councillors and officers to look into those feedback, Mayor Woodley and colleagues. These changes, as I mentioned, is about securing the long-term future of Hackney's market, not short-term savings. We know that every trader contributes to the borough's character and success by modernizing how we manage payment, addressing energy and waste efficiency, and ensuring every pound is reinvested locally. We are protecting the future of our markets for generations to come. With this approach, we are supporting small businesses, creating local jobs, and upholding Hackney reputation as one of the dynamic and inclusive boroughs in London. Thank you, colleagues. This proposal, like I said, will keep Hackney among the most competitive and inclusive market operators in London while meeting our legal duty to ensure full cost recovery under the LLA 1990. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you for the comprehensive walkthrough of the proposals. Any questions or comments from the panel?
Just briefly to say that the stakeholder board that has been set up, the process has been set up as part of this, working really closely with the environmental health services, the people who pick up the waste, has been really effective and helpful, and engagement from stallholders has been really helpful as well, and just very keen that that continues. I know that there's been a commitment from both parts of the council for that to continue, and I think it's really led to improvements in our understanding of how how we collect the waste, but also of that engagement from the stallholders and different kinds of market traders actually has been very useful in understanding how, you know, which parts of the service can be changed, which parts of the service are absolutely essential, and how stallholders can contribute to making that service as efficient and effective, you know, and as cheap as possible.
Thank you, Mayor Woodley. Sorry, Councillor Young, thanks for saying that. And that prompted me to actually register a huge thank you for your contribution to other traders and residents and to officers. Officers have done quite a lot of work to get us to this point, as well as other councillors that have been part of that conversation, including councillors in Gabet as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I know it's challenging sometimes it comes to completion of financial pressure and time pressure. So, can we do recommendations as Item 21, Kings Hall Legislative Refurbishment projects. So as everyone knows, we're making a really bold long-term investment in Kings Hall. It's a historic great for the city while delivering new accessible leisure facilities that reflect our commitment to health, heritage and equity. Even in tight amount of time, we're prioritising capital funding because this refurbishment is essential, doing nothing with risk permanent closure due to the building's deteriorating condition. And we are fortunate because we have a very well financially managed council, that we're in a position of low borrowing, still some reserves, even if we're being told constantly to keep an eye on them. I'm looking at them project that we are able to put that additional investment in place, so that we can push ahead with this project. So, are there any questions or comments from the Cabinet? No?
Great.
Would Cabinet like to go into the exempt business discussion policy? No? And it's to the recommendations. Great. Thank you very much. That means we'll finally be putting out our recommendations on the next episode. So I think we now need to go into exam business. So we need to exclude press and public. So I just want to make sure that I let you all know that our next meeting is scheduled for 6 PM Monday, 15th of December. Pre-festive cabinet meeting, what would you ask for? We can now exclude press and public and end the live streaming. Yeah.